Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and Attention Coach Jeff Copper, and we're here with Dr. Sharon Saline. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me.
I love distinctions. It's really, really important because when you globalize stuff, to me, it's hard to deal with because it's just a feeling. But when you break it down into components, you can kind of identify and isolate things. And I was talking to you one time about the difference between worry and anxiety. And I think a lot of people kind of commingle those things together, and I can see how they are. But can you talk to us, what is worry and what is anxiety?
That's such a great question and such an important distinction. Worried is how you think about something, and anxiety is your physiological response to those thoughts. So worried thoughts are usually distorted thoughts, and anxiety has to do with that beating heart, that sweating, that kind of panicky feeling you get because your amygdala, that little part of the brain, has come out and taken control and is looking around to make sure there are no tigers chasing you in the jungle.
And so the anxiety is a byproduct of something. It's not the direct thing, but it's a byproduct of something. And what I heard you say, worry is basically your mindset, how your mind is set up to think about something. And when it's set up to think about it a certain way, it results in that anxiety. So if you want to deal with the anxiety, focus more on how your mind is set up to deal with the situation.
Exactly. A lot of times people go into trying to deal with the panic itself, and really what you have to do is deal with the thinking. We want to get the thinking brain back on board because anxiety is all about amnesia. You forget times when you successfully managed something that was worrisome or scary and you're just in the moment panicking. We want to start to get you to think about things, to pause and stay in the moment when you're actually okay and not to be headed toward the future with the thing that isn't actually happened yet.
And so one of the things that I do, it's really pretty funny because tactically when I'm dealing with somebody who has a lot of anxiety, like test anxiety or worry as a result of that, I go and I sit down and let's talk about how you study for these tests. And one of the things that as a coach that I do is I spend a lot of time, what is your dominant learning modality? And let's understand what that is, because all too often I find students are studying the way that they were told, not the way that they were naturally done. And we did a video one time, a period of time, if you just Google Attention Talk video punk rock, you'll get a video with Dr. Roberto Olivardia. And it was kind of funny because Ari Tuckman, who's a good friend of mine, I've interviewed him a gazillion times, he writes in absolute silence. But he said Roberto writes with punk rock videos on the same screen. He says it's like nothing you've ever seen. And he wrote his Harvard dissertation to this. And he also, he reads faster if he's riding the subway. So when you start to take a look at that environmental type thing that is so different from Ari's, but if you've been taught that you have to study a certain way and you're not doing that, I like to help them, like, let's talk about how you learn yourself. And then once we do that, now we have to set your brain up differently to think differently. So it has happened several times where I've worked with people that were good, but they needed to take the oral test, not the written test. And we had to set their brain up to say, listen, you're a smart person. The manner in which the test is being taken is very, very different. And actually, if you watch the movie The Blind Side, they talked about the kid taking it. And so if you can isolate these things and say, listen, the anxiety that I feel from the test is because I don't really know how to study. And if you begin to notice your most dominant ways, because to me, how you learn, if you really watch your behavior, you're instinctively going to go to the easiest way, unless you override it. And you think about, what am I doing when I learn the fastest? Whatever you did before that has got all the characteristics. And so anyway, when I'm coaching, it's so often is let's go back and let's see what the successes are, and let's reprogram your brain to set it up to think differently. Or the other thing is, okay, you missed 3 appointments this week. I understand that, but you made 20 of them on time. How did you make those on time? That's the trick to set your mind up to reduce the worry, to reduce the anxiety. So we're getting in front of this, not the backside of it.
Exactly. What you want to do with anxiety is you want to help kids think about a time when they faced a similar challenge, not necessarily the same situation. People often get into the weeds with anxiety. They get stuck in the content. We want to go to the bigger picture. When was the last time you faced a challenge and you met that challenge. In fact, you overcame your nervousness to do that challenge. And maybe it's not test related at all. Maybe it's you're running down the field, you have the soccer ball, and you're going to have to kick the goal, and you're worried you're not going to make it, and somehow you kick the ball and you make the goal. How did you do that?
Yep, exactly.
And we want to apply that to the challenge that you have right now, because our brains don't connect those, and that's that amnesia I'm talking about with anxiety.
And what she's saying, I just want to twist this, because sometimes it's how you were successful at it. Other times, the other strategy is, what do I do to make some adjustments? So I was actually coaching at one point in time a man of the cloth, and he was great in the pulpit. But after he got done, everybody would file out and they would ask him some questions. And when they would ask him a question, he would freeze, because there was the literal answer of the Bible at the time, but there was the interpretation of it. And he didn't think well on his feet, and so he had a lot of anxiety when he was going to church because of the experience at the end. And we did something that's simple, is that when he began to realize his issue was responding to it in the moment, the issue was, can I pray on it and get back to you tomorrow? That simple thing enabled him to have the time for him to process it and call them back to make that happen. And we did that a couple times. It was successful. Then his mind was set up differently because we had that tactical strategy, which reduced the worry, which reduced the anxiety, which made everything a little bit better. So the reason I like this distinction is people go to the anxiety, but that doesn't resolve the problem.
No, and you need to slow things down. When you're in an anxiety attack, the thing that's hardest and most important is to slow it down. So by saying, that's a good question, let me think about that. How many of us may have been at a job interview and someone asks you a question, you don't know what it is, and you repeat back, oh, so you're asking me X, which buys you time to slow down and be able to come up with a solid answer.
There's a lot to spin off, but the bottom line, the reason I wanted to bring this up is there's a difference between these two, as I've learned from her. The anxiety is the physical manifestation. Don't focus in on that. Focus in on how your mind is set up. That's the switch, because that will resolve the worry, which will resolve. So it's a downstream type thing. So I hope I want you to realize this is not the easiest thing to do, because shifting your mindset or changing that is not a thing that happens, or you just don't snap your finger. It's a thing of process, but it can be done.
And it takes a lot of practice, because it's not natural. When someone's anxious, our natural inclination is to reassure them and tell them it's going to be fine. And the thing about doing that can feel good in the moment, but it doesn't teach skills. And I'm not saying you shouldn't validate your child's experience. Yes, acknowledge that what they're feeling is real and they're struggling. Absolutely. But don't try to sort of push it aside or dismiss it or minimize it or tell them it's going to be okay, because you can't control that, and they don't learn resilience. And that's the thing that kids who struggle with worried thoughts and anxiety need to learn resilience, because someday you won't be there to reassure them, and they have to do it themselves.
I love this video. We're kind of riffing this a little bit, which is some of my favorites. So we hope that we've given you pause to think and pay attention to what you need to pay attention to in order to reverse the cycle. Please, if you hit the subscribe button right here, we'd love you to sign up. You'll get another tip like this every week. Leave some comments. We're interested in your thoughts. Does this make some sense? Anything else to add? And with all that, Sharon, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Take care, everybody.